Hey Brett, how are you holding up?
Hey Martin, I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Oh, good, good. In my closet, doing well.
Well, I was checking our email inbox at the Serverless Toolbox, and we got an email from our friends at the dessert store down the street who asked if we could help them build something for an API.
Oh, I love desserts. What do they want?
Well, they have all of this internal inventory of desserts, and they were wondering, hey, can we put this into maybe a database, maybe a MySQL database, and expose that as an API so all their customers could do queries against the API and track their inventory and see sort of what desserts they have and some characteristics about them.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, like a REST API, and maybe a SQL database, maybe serverless.
I mean, we're a serverless toolbox, so let's see if we can do it serverless. I totally agree.
So yeah, let's go here. We're in the Cloud Platform console. So I guess we'll just create a new project.
Yeah, and we'll create it from scratch, and that way, like nothing is pre-created. There's no setup ahead of time. This will be from the very beginning. The only thing we did actually do ahead of time was set up billing, just so you don't have to watch us put in credit card information into the browser. But other than that, we're creating this from scratch.
Yeah. So here it's thinking about it. All right, very good. Looks like we have it. Dessert Store API. You know what? We will probably need this project ID. So I'll just put it in here. Let's see, project ID, that one. Always good to save some notes as we're going.
Oh yeah, every project I do, I have some random text files that has random musings from my brain or various values to save, things like that.
Right.
So, totally agree.
Yeah. And you said SQL database, right?
Yeah, so when I'm building a project in Google Cloud, I usually use Cloud SQL if I need to use a SQL. It's not fully serverless in the sense that
right.
it's not pay as you go, but it's fully managed at least, so we don't have to worry about kind of setting up the infrastructure. Yep, and I think MySQL, we both use that quite a bit, is a good flavor to use.
That's right.
So,
and here
it seems like no matter what people do with serverless, they want to end up using MySQL or a SQL server of some kind at some point.
Yeah, right. So here we're setting up not the database, but the instance. So that's another way of saying setting up the server, right?
Exactly. So it's creating sort of the server or the set of resources used to handle your database. So the instance doesn't hold users and tables directly. Instead, you can create the database within the instance, within the server, basically. Yep.
And let's have that password. I hope I didn't reuse your password there.
I told you to keep that a secret.
Yeah. All right, it's not a secret anymore. So let's see, you're in New York, I'm in California. Should we meet in the middle in US Central?
Yeah, perfect. That sounds good. Well, we'll average our distances here.
Okay, cool. So this will actually set up a brand new server for us. This will take a little while. So maybe we can get started on writing some code while this is setting up.
Totally love writing code. Let's dive right in.
Yeah. So let's see. You've written down a few other things that we will need. We'll eventually populate these.
Yeah, and we'll get to it later. But you started writing the password in the instance, and I thought, you know what, we're going to probably want to take those out of the app itself and also out of our notes document and put them into environment variables. But we'll cross that when we get to it.
Yeah, and let's see. So we could do any programming language really, because we're going to run this as a container. But should we do Node?
Yeah, we've been. I mean, that's probably what I'm most familiar with. It's what we've been doing a lot of stuff in. So let's do Node.js. So if you don't know Node.js, NPM is the package manager for Node. It handles dependencies and things like that. So Martin just ran npm init, and it created this default package.json. So it has things like, what dependencies do I have? How do I, what is the author? What is the license? Things like that. And so now Martin is also running npm install MySQL. So that install the MySQL npm library, npm dependency, because we need to talk to the MySQL database. And then also the Express npm package. And Express is a web framework for Node.js. So it lets you do like a HTTP, like a REST API or a web app, things like that. And then we're also going to install Body Parser. And the Body Parser is a middleware for Express that will automatically look at incoming requests. And for example, if it's a JSON in the body, say an HTTP post, it'll automatically parse the JSON in the post request and turn it into an actual object with actual properties, so that we in our user code don't have to go through and parse the incoming request.
Right. And this is the part I always forget. And then I get I need to look in the logs and what went wrong. So let's do this right from the beginning.
Yeah, totally agree. And this is just standard Node.js. npm start is how you would run this, as a way of telling sort of like metadata about your app, which is what goes in this package JSON. So this is how you're declaring how do you actually run your app? How do you start your app?
Yeah.
So it's just node index.js.
Yeah, so Node will run index.js. So I guess we need an index.js, huh?
Oh, I guess that would help. Yeah.
Okay, index.js. And here maybe pull in some libraries.
Yes. So the difference here is, so we told in our package.json, we told Node, hey, we're going to need access to the MySQL library, but it's not actually automatically available in every file. So we'll just require these so we can use these in our index.js.
So those of you who haven't done much Node, require, that's kind of like an import statement in other languages.
Yeah, exactly. Import, include, something like that. Exactly.
Yeah. And
a couple of things I want to point out. We're eventually going to deploy this app to Cloud Run. It's our serverless platform for Google Cloud. Two things, I guess they're kind of two things to be aware of that you have to do differently than you might do in a normal Node app. One is that you'll need to have your app end up in a container, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The second is that you need to have your app listen for incoming traffic on port, the port environment variable. So Cloud Run, when it starts up your app, it'll set the port environment variable. And then that way, because it may or may not be the same every time it runs, that way your app knows what port to run on. And so right here, we'll say port equals process.env, which is just how you access environment variables in Node.js .port. And then if that doesn't exist, we'll do a reasonable default. So we'll say 8080, for example.
Yeah, 8080 is a good default. Let's do that. And then we'll tell the app to actually listen.
And the default port is so if we run it locally or if we run it, it's something outside of Cloud Run, that port environment variable is not set. It just picks some reasonable default.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I have my keyboard in a little different place than I usually do. Sorry.
That's all right. I'm keeping an eye on it. Here. So we, pair programming, hopefully will help with some of that.
Yes. Love it. So when will this console log print out?
As soon as the app starts up and starts listening for traffic, we should see this REST API listening on port such and such, but it's not actually handling any requests. It's literally just outputting that it's up and ready. So let's do an endpoint here, maybe just a get on the root. Looks good.
On the root, okay, so you just hit the URL with nothing more.
No additional query strings or path parameters or anything like that.
Addition. Right. I like doing this because then even if everything else breaks, you can at least hit this and see, did my API deploy? It's sort of hello world.
Kind of a sanity check of, API. Okay, is my app actually fundamentally listening to requests and actually responding to them? So, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll just, exactly. So there's no other dependencies in here. We're not writing to a database or reading to a database or anything. It's just, is our app up and listening and taking requests?
Yeah. So this is a complete little, very little, but somewhat complete Node
definitely.
app, right?
So should we maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you have a special trick for running this locally. I mean, I usually just upload everything to the cloud right away, but you're more of a local development guy. Could you show us how to run this locally?
Yeah, and so we alluded to it earlier. I'm actually just going to run npm. Let's see
Oh,
if
sorry.
right.
I'm moving over to. We're in the right.
Oh, okay. Yep. So down in the terminal here, I'm going to type npm start, which again is going to look in that package JSON. And see what is the command, which in this case is just running node. All right, so we've got an error already.
All right.
What did we miss? Unhandled address error already in use. Interesting. Okay, well, we could debug that. We probably have something up and running earlier, but I'm actually just going to change this. So instead of 8080, let's listen to like 8082.
Yeah, let's do that one.
Yeah. We'll just be lazy, and whatever is up and running already, we'll just let it be. All right. So so there's that message you
that's the message, right?
said, REST API. Yep, listening on port
cool.
such and such.
Now, so we got to line 9 here. That's good. Now, how do we get and execute this code down here?
Yeah, so let's just do a curl.
So
to do an
in the
HTTP
other
request.
bash window?
Yeah, if you switch to the other terminal, we'll just do a curl localhost 8082.
Yeah. Oh, look at that.
And look at that. API ready to serve desserts.
Amazing. Cool. So this is great. Now, let's see. This is kind of hard-coded here. We'll eventually have a database, but maybe we want to add a little something more fun to this string here.
Yeah, let's. So we talked about environment variables. Maybe let's do one of those, and we can say add maybe like a location. Right. So that way, depending on where we deploy to, we can set that location. And again, one of the things I want to point out here, just to reiterate, is we're just doing environment variables like you would anywhere else in Node. You run it locally like you normally would. There's nothing yet that's sort of specific to Cloud Run or specific to Google Cloud, which is nice because you don't have to rewrite your app depending on where you run it.
Yeah. You're in New York, right?
Set that environment variable. Yeah, there we go.
NYC, go.
Which, if you hear any like sirens or traffic outside, you'll know, hey, it's New York City. And even when it's quiet, it's still kind of noisy.
Cool. Let's see. Should I curl this?
Yep. And let's see if our environment
search from New York City.
Awesome.
Yeah, New York's very good. Yeah. Now, I think the Bay Area is a little underrepresented here, so I will say from Mountain View.
Nice. Here
we go. Let's see if that works. Yeah, the desserts from Mountain View. Okay, great. And these environment variables will be very useful when we eventually hit the database, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's really what we're setting this up for, is to set all this SQL connection stuff to the database. But before that, before we get into the database, what do you say? Let's actually deploy this. Let's get it up and running in the cloud and deploy to Cloud Run.
Oh, that's right. So, this is still just on a laptop here. It's not reachable. Yeah. And then we need a container, right?
Yes. So I mentioned there are two things typically that you have to do differently to get it to run in Cloud Run. One of those is listen on the port environment variable, and the other one is to turn your app into a container. And the way that you do that is you start with a set of steps that you will say, here is how I want to build my app, not just the code, not just compile the code, not just install the dependencies, but actually set up the base operating system. So here we say from node 12. So this is like a pre-published base container image that already has an operating system. It has node 12 installed. So we don't have to set that up ourselves. We could if we wanted to. We could, if we have custom libraries or custom dependencies, we could set that up. And then when we just say, create the this working directory, this is where we're going to do everything, copy our package JSON in there, and then do npm install so that it will install and run those dependencies that we just talked about, like MySQL and Express. And then we're going to copy our app code over. And then after that, we'll just run the npm start. So just like we were doing locally, we'll run npm start. So this is this series of commands in the Docker file. And honestly, for a lot of Node apps, and Martin, tell me if this is true of you too, like this exact Docker file is all I use because I'm not doing anything crazy by and large.
98% of Node apps, I just copy this. And then if you were to run custom binaries or stuff, you could install that here, but most of the time I don't.
Yeah, totally. So now that we have the Docker file, which has the set of steps, we need to actually turn it from the text description into a sort of compiled or built container image. So I'm going to go down here to our terminal, and let's and I will show you how to build it. You could do it in Docker, so if you had Docker on your local machine, but I'm actually going to use a tool.
I don't have Docker on my machine. Can we still do this?
Yes. So funny you should ask. We've got a tool in Google Cloud called Cloud Build. So if I say gcloud build submit.
Do you want to set the user project ID?
Yeah, good point. So so you can hard code the project, but one handy tip that I actually got from Martin is just to set this as a environment variable. Whoops, project ID. So that, oh no, my copy and paste foo failed. Let me try that again. Project ID equals. That way, as you move between projects, you don't have to, you can just change that variable, and then you don't have to change it where it's hard coded in your command. So
yeah, very nice. So here we have gcloud builds. That is hitting Google Cloud Build, which will actually take this Docker file, take index.js, take package.json, take everything we've written here, and build it in the cloud. So we could build locally, of course, but it's often good to build in the cloud because we have stronger machines there than this laptop. Also, if every developer on a team builds in the cloud, you get consistent builds that work the same way. So here it's creating tarball, sending it up into the cloud. We see that the build API was actually not active yet because this is a brand new project. We haven't turned that API on, so Bret just did. Now it is activating that, and now that it has activated the build API, it can actually start building it. So what's the output of the build here?
So the output of the build will be a container image. So it's not actually something that is running or executing. It's essentially, so it's the difference between so if you think about it as an analogy, source code versus compiled app versus an actual running app. So source code for this container world would be like the Docker file. So the Docker file just has the steps to build the container. The container image is what we're doing now, which is actually compiling and running those steps. And this is going to take a little bit longer the first time. There's some caching that happens. So when we build it the next time, it knows like, oh, the first few steps of building this Docker file didn't change. So it maybe has cached those images already. So it can just pull them and doesn't have to begin from the beginning. But the first time we build it, it's going to take a little bit longer. And then the output of that. So
it's basically, you said going through step by step this file here, right? We saw the various steps here, completed 5 out of 6, 6 out of 6, and it has finished.
Yes, exactly.
So let's see where this ended up.
Exactly. It's up in the cloud. Let's go take a look.
Up in the cloud. Yeah. Life in the cloud is good. Look at this. In the container registry, that's where it ended up. And it is private visibility. Okay, that's good. And look at that. The first version of our Desserts API. The container is sitting there in our registry.
Yep, created just now. And one of the things that we can do here is we can add tags. You'll notice it's kind of just this hash ID, which may not be meaningful. Oh, what is 8E6843, yada, yada. We don't know what that is. So we can give it something a little bit more meaningful, like V1, which you have infamously called, which I like, the most dangerous version of software.
Right. Now, this sits here. This is sort of a compiled container, built container. It's not serving traffic yet, is it?
Right, exactly. So again, that's just like the compiled container is not actually up and running. So to run it, we need to deploy it somewhere. And one of the things that's nice is container is a common industry standard. So you can deploy it a whole bunch of different ways. You could deploy it to just to run on a virtual machine. You could deploy it to run on Kubernetes, like Google Kubernetes engine. You could run it in a serverless way, like Cloud Run. And actually, handily enough, there's this little menu there in Container Registry that you could just, with one click, deploy it to each of these different environments. But we're a serverless toolbox. We want to do it serverlessly. So we're going to deploy it to the fully managed version of Cloud Run. Here's the Cloud Run Create service.
So the data lives in US Central 1. So maybe we should put our code in US Central 1 too?
Yeah, I think it usually makes sense when possible to have your data next to your code, so that you aren't going in and out of regions, and it's a little bit slower and maybe costs money potentially depending on where you're going back and forth from.
Yeah. Now we have a environment variable, the location. That we didn't set that in when we deployed our build, so we can set it here or from the command line.
Yes. Yep.
So what was it?
US Central. Oh yeah, I think Iowa is US Central 1. Yep.
Yeah, let's call it Iowa. So then it should say ready to serve desserts from Iowa, if everything works.
If all goes well.
Yeah. So Bret, what odds do you give this working well on the very first try?
I feel reasonably good. Let's say 70% chance that it works.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's probably about as high as I ever go. Usually it's more in like the 15 to 20% confidence. It's actually more of like something is probably broken. Let's see if I can figure out what it is quickly.
Yes.
That's funny.
Indeed.
And sometimes, again, just like we just turned on Cloud Build to build a container for the first time, we're just turning on Cloud Run. So sometimes the very first deploy to these services can take a little bit of extra time. Usually this just takes a few seconds to deploy to Cloud Run, but we just enabled the API. So sometimes it has to spin up some other things. But look, there we go.
Look at that. All right. Do I dare hit it?
Let's do it.
So this is going to run our code in Iowa, right?
Yeah.
If it works. Oh, look at that.
All right, cool.
Amazing.
All right, awesome.
All right, great.
And actually, if we go back to the Cloud Run console, one thing I kind of want to point out is...
Let's see.
Do we lose it?
How do I...
I think if you just do Command W, it should just close this window.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, because we were experimenting with going full screen, and so it hides all the tabs at the top. So one thing I want to point out that you get automatically with Cloud Run is you get this HTTPS fully qualified domain. So you can do it takes care of SSL cert and all of that for you. And that URL is static. So you, of course, can set your own domain and your own domain name and your own name to customize that. But by default, you get a static URL. So even though we're going to end up deploying a couple different versions, that URL does not change. That's static.
That's neat. Now we started setting up the SQL server, or the MySQL instance, I should say, here. Runnable. Does this mean it's set up?
So we're missing a couple of things. We don't actually have a database inside of it. Yeah, we just have... if we click on that, we'll probably just see like the system databases that are...
look at that. This is just the system ones. Yeah. So let's create one for us. Let's see. Desserts DB, maybe?
Yeah, that works for me. Either that, or we could, just put it in the sys database, and who knows what that would...
Oh my gosh, yes.
Probably not a good idea.
So that is SQL name. That's the name of the database, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll go with the defaults here. Adding database. This may take a few minutes. Whoops, it took like 3 seconds. There it is. Now, it's not really good practice to use the root password when reading from the database, right?
Yeah, let's create a user specifically for our API.
So that's up here, right? Okay, so we have root here. Very good, yeah, but we're not going to use that. Should we call it REST API?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. I guess we will...
I'm going to use my password again.
Yeah, another one of your passwords. Let me just make sure that, let's see, write it down in our little notes file here.
35 for her.
For her,
yeah. It's very, very memorable.
Yeah. Okay, so we have our database instance, that is our server. We have our database running on the server. We have a user. We don't have data, do we?
Yeah, let's create a table, I guess, first and foremost, and then stick some data in there.
We don't even have a table for the desserts, let alone data, right?
Yeah, so this Cloud Shell, super handy. If you haven't used the Google Cloud Platform before, every project comes with this free kind of lightweight virtual machine, has a bunch of useful things already pre-installed. So it has like Node and Python and the gcloud command line tool, a bunch of things you might need. And there's just this handy little one-click button within Cloud SQL to pre-populate the command to connect to your instance. So you can see on there in the console, it says gcloud SQL Connect Dessert instance. You could actually run that on your workstation if you wanted to from your machine, but it's just handy because it creates this for you automatically and puts it in Cloud Shell. And
yeah, I love running little conversion scripts, data conversion stuff, little things like that where I don't want to pull all the data down to my local machine and push all of the data up again. Little maintenance tasks, Cloud Shell is great for that.
Yeah, totally. And in fact, building containers is one thing that if you are going to use Docker and not use Cloud Build, is kind of nice to use in something like Cloud Shell, because some of these containers can be like gigs and gigs. And so rather than copying it up and down from your local machine, you can just do it in Cloud Shell. So it's all in the cloud and it's much, much faster.
Yeah. So what did we call it? Desserts
underscore DB.
It was underscore, right?
With a plural, desserts.
Ah, yes, indeed. I'll copy so I don't make... There we go. Okay, and let's look at our tables.
And then do you mind increasing the font size maybe in...
Oh, thank you.
I'm like watching your screen. I think it's in the 3 dots there. Oh, there you go. Even better.
Yeah. Yep. That's better.
Cool.
Okay, so no tables. So I guess we will create a table.
Yes.
Desserts, maybe?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. And usually good to start maybe with an ID.
Yeah. An incrementing ID. So, go from 1 to 2 to 3. Sounds good to me. And then probably next we need the name of the dessert. That seems reasonable.
Yeah, let's do that.
And then what do you think? What's another attribute? I've been doing a lot of working from home. I think you have too. I've become very aware of calories. Very aware. So
I love it. Calories. And we're setting that to not null values, and nobody will get away with registering a dessert and not telling us how many calories it is.
Exactly. Which is exactly what I would do.
Yeah. And then maybe how well we like it.
Oh yeah, a rating, of course. Yeah. 5-star desserts, exactly.
5-star desserts, yeah. And let's see, primary key. What's the... Oh, it's like this.
On our ID. Yep, that works for me.
And let's see. All right. And then, should we do what we always do at this point?
Yes.
Create a new table.
Do a select on the empty table and make sure everything looks good. It's funny. Something I just do subconsciously sometimes. Just keep querying it. Did it work? Yes. Yeah. Good. All right. Yeah. Let's put some data in here. We've got...
Yeah.
Oops. It looks like you got inert instead of insert there.
Uh-oh. Pair programming for the win.
Programming, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
From across the country.
Yeah. Best kind of pair programming. Oh, this is annoying that this thing would go.
Oh, yeah, that's weird.
Rating, let's see. Oops. There. Rating and values.
So one of the things I liked that Android did for a while was do their dessert names or OS versions alphabetically. So is there an A dessert you can think
something with apple maybe?
Oh yeah.
Apple crisp.
Perfect. I don't love apple crisp, but it starts with an A, so I'm here for it.
Yeah. So don't love it. I hear you're saying 2 here.
Yeah, that would be my rating. Probably like a 2. Okay. I mean, I'll eat it if it's in front of me. Don't get me wrong, but probably not going to order it.
Yeah. So then back here, B, banana.
Oh yeah, banana split. Perfect. Yep.
Banana split. That's a little more, right?
Yeah, that seems good. I do like a banana
Yeah.
split, so maybe 3 or
Uh-huh.
4. What do you think? Yeah, 4
Yeah,
works.
okay. A 4 sounds good. And I really need to get rid of that thing. Let's see. C. What's on C?
Cheesecake. I'm in New York. How about
Oh,
a New
you're
York cheesecake? Yeah,
you're
and
in
then
New York.
obviously we can control the calories. Let's set this. It
Uh,
would just be like 5 calories. Does that work?
5.
Because if you set it here, this it's true. Yeah, 1,000. It's probably more accurate.
So, Brett, you're in New York. What
Gotta go
rating does a
5.
cheesecake?
Yeah, you gotta
5.
go
Gotta go 5.
maximum. Yeah, 5
All
out of
right.
5.
Very good. Look,
All
our
right.
test data is there.
We put data in a database. We're cooking. Literally, I guess, in this case, we're making desserts.
Right. Okay, so this is looking good. I guess we're probably done here.
One thing you might want to copy out of this URL or out of that page there is the instance connection string.
Oh yeah, good idea. I'll do that. I just refreshed the window here.
Which is
Now,
it's
let's
right
see.
under. Yeah, down there. There it
this
is.
one.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me. Copied. And that will eventually call that instance connection name there. All right.
Cool.
So that's like the fully qualified path. Our server, our region, and no, sorry. Our project,
Oh, right. Yeah.
and then our region, and then our server name.
Yeah.
So,
Perfect.
and on that note, we will need to turn on this. We might as well turn on the SQL admin API, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that you need to do, if for example you're going to connect a Cloud Run app to Cloud SQL, so by default the services cannot talk to each other. So if you want Cloud Run to be able to talk to your Cloud SQL database, you need to set up like a special connection, which we'll show you how to do in a minute. The only prerequisite for programmatically deploying your app and letting it talk to Cloud SQL is you have to turn on this SQL admin API. The difference between the SQL admin API and the SQL API is SQL API lets you execute queries like do a select or an insert. The SQL admin API lets you programmatically manipulate the instance, the resources, the network connectivity, for example, of your Cloud SQL instance. So all we need to do is just enable the API. We're not actually doing anything with it directly. Cloud Run will take care of that for us, but this is one manual step to be aware of if you're going to have Cloud Run talk to Cloud SQL.
Okay, cool. So it's on. Everything is super secure and locked down by default as it should be. So we need to open it up a little bit. All right. So we have data in our database. Our database instance is running. We have a user. All we need is code to hit the database now, right?
Yeah, totally.
Let's see. Index. So maybe should we keep this where we hit the root here? It's always good to have this.
Yeah, I think it's like a sanity check, a health check, and then how about I can hop in here and I will add a endpoint to do to get a specific dessert. So I want to get cheesecake, or for example.
So this is an ID, so we would hit this long URL that we saw before, and then like /1, for example, to get the apple crisp, or /3 to get the cheesecake. So the code here, the Bret is writing. First, we're pulling out from the parameters, we're pulling out ID, parsing this as an integer, and then pulling out the dessert row. This dessert here will be a row from the database. And I love this way of writing code. We just assume that there is a get dessert function that does all the hard database stuff.
Exactly. That's
and then we return. And now we call the intern to say, please write get dessert.
For purposes of this, I will play the role of the intern as well.
You're simulating the intern. Okay,
exactly.
Very good. So here's the hard stuff. Because this will be asynchronous, of course, because it's hitting a database. And the MySQL, if you worked with MySQL in Node before, you will know that it's sort of a callback-based API. So just to make sure that we can use await up here, we will sort of transform this callback API to promise-based. So we're turning a promise here that we can do an await on up here. Here is the SQL command we'll run, select star from deserts, where ID equals question mark. It's worth noting that we're not saying where ID equals and then plus ID, because this ID, remember, well, it's been parsed as an integer, but still it is something that came from the user in the URL up here. So by doing the query call here and sending in the SQL template string and then sending in an array of values to put in the string, it will, the query function here will automatically and safely put these, whatever is in this array, replace this question marks with them. And then we'll resolve this promise. And the 0th element in result, that will have the result from the query. Now it's getDBPool here is called, so we need a bit of connection pooling.
Yep, so I'm going to write the code for that.
Yeah, you wrote something there, yeah. Oh, are you writing a global variable? Bret?
I know.
So usually global variables are bad, but actually in serverless, they can sometimes help a lot with performance. Because if cache DB pool is nothing, then here will be expensive code for creating one. But if cache DB pool was created before by a previous request, and if Google has kept our instance, our server running where our microservice here has been installed, then cache DB pool will have a value already. It will be a connection. So we don't have to do that expensive call to create pool. That is the expensive call. We won't have to do it on every request, especially if we have a lot of traffic. This really saves on performance. And of course, we send in user, password, and database, and what server it should go to. And all of those, we could hard code them in here, but as you know, it's dangerous. It's a high likelihood that we will accidentally check in this code. So instead, we're reading from environment variables. So we will need to set these environment variables. We'll do that in the Cloud Console on the web page in a little bit. All right. This looks pretty good, right?
Yeah, I think so.
There's a good chance this will work.
Well, I just wrote it all in one go, so the I would say no, maybe not, but it's worth trying it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I'll just submit it to the build service here.
Yep.
It's going up into the cloud to build.
And in theory, it should take a little bit less time since we're building it. Since it may have cached some of the layers already. Did you talk about connection limit when I was doing the create DB pool?
No, I didn't actually. Do you want to mention the connection limit?
Yeah, so here we've got this connection limit set to 1, and that basically means our instance has at most one active connection to our MySQL database. So if you have multiple requests coming in, and Cloud Run can do concurrency, so it can handle from 1 to potentially up to 80 requests, and you can configure that. If you have a bunch of requests coming at the same time, though, you might want to play with changing that connection limit, because if you only have one and you have maybe 10 requests handling at the same time and they both need to access the database, then maybe the second or third request has to wait until the first request is finished using the database before it reuses that same connection. So it helps that it doesn't, it pools the connection, so it has to create, tear up, and then tear down a new connection to the database each time.
All right, very good. And the build succeeded at least, so that's maybe it will work. I guess the proof is in when we actually deploy it. Huh?
So let's do a new deploy, and then we need to set those environment variables that I put in that.
Oh, that's right.
Connection
Otherwise
to that.
The code will crash, right? So, okay, so we're in here. We're looking at the Cloud Run Service Deserts Store API, and we'll deploy the latest. So the latest is the one that we just built. You saw in the command line there. All of this is good, but we need a few more variables here.
Yep.
So I'll just get them one by one.
And while you're copying that over, so the latest is a label, but it's a label that is automatically applied by Cloud Build to whatever the most recent push is. So we didn't actually explicitly label something latest. We could have given it another label as well, like V1.1 or V2 or whatever. But latest is sort of a reserved keyword, or reserved label, if you will, to automatically get the most recent version, which is the one that we just pushed up.
All right.
And then as Martin is finishing to put these environment variables in, one thing to note is when you do a deploy with a set of environment variables, Cloud Run will remember those environment variables for subsequent deploys. So you don't have to actually fill this out every time. The next time we do a deploy, we could just say, hey, just deploy the new container, and it'll keep the same environment variables from before. Obviously, if you need to change the values, you can change them with a new deploying a new revision, but by default you don't have to. It'll remember it from the previous time. And then same thing with connections here. So Martin's about to enable that connectivity between, this is what we need that Cloud SQL admin API enabled for earlier, so that Cloud Run can set up that private connection between your Cloud Run app and the SQL server. And one thing I just want to make sure that we point out, so there are two parts to talking to Cloud SQL. One is connectivity. So oh no, well, looks like we have a bug, so we can talk about logging.
Yeah, I love logging.
And let me just finish my thought while you're going to the logs. There's two parts to connecting to the database. There is connectivity. Can your Cloud Run app see the database? And that's what we just enabled in that connections tab, and what we need the Cloud SQL admin API for. So now that it can see the database, though, doesn't mean it can automatically connect. So that's why now that it can see it, we also need to have the REST username and password and database and all that. All right, let's see what our error is. Missing parentheses.
So,
what did I
Yeah, it's missing parentheses after app.get.
Oh, that damn intern. Tell you what, he's... I'm missing a comma. Of course I am.
Dessert.
Yeah, I just found it. So I was missing this comma right here that I think is highlighted.
Oh, there was no comma there. Yeah. Was that it?
Wah, wah, wah. Let me go ahead and rebuild it. And
okay.
And we kind of alluded to this earlier. We're kind of just deploying our new version, building the container and deploying as we edit code. Realistically, you wouldn't actively develop your application that way. You would actually build and run and develop your app locally, or however you normally do in your normal IDE and your normal editors. And that way you get local debugging and breakpoints and all that. And in fact, there's a tool, like a SQL proxy tool, that you can use to download to your app that will let you connect from your local machine to your Cloud SQL instance securely, so you can actually test queries against the database and things like that. So generally you would probably build out your API, feel like you had it up and working and running, and then deploy it to a container and then to Cloud Run, because there's a little bit of time involved here to rebuild a container each time and rebuild to Cloud Run. But we're skipping the local development just to speed things up.
I know many people are working exactly like you described. I know some people, and myself included, I like to build in the cloud, do everything in the cloud. My machine is just a dumb text editor. That's all I do on my machine. But it depends on how heavy the things are, how long it takes to deploy, how big your container is.
And actually, if I'm being totally honest, my default is also probably just to deploy it and see if it works. And then inevitably what happens is after about 5 or 6 iterations of fixing that, I have one more bug, fix that, one more bug. Then I'm like, never mind. Let me just get this running locally, because it's a much faster cycle. But you can do both.
Yeah.
All right.
So, so we're going to deploy latest. That is the one we just built at the command line. All the variables, secrets are still here, and the database connection is still there. So we're just sort of applying new code to this.
Mm-hmm. All right. What percentage chance do you think?
I think 70%. You said it maxed out at 70. We're never allowed to say more than 70.
I mean, that's just me personally. We had a typo. I'm going to say 30%. I feel very unconfident at this point.
So just hitting the root URI here, we see that we get this. Now let's see. Do I need to go back in? I will do this for a minute just so that I can type like 1 here, for example. This is going to get us maybe 30% chance is getting us apple crisp.
Oh gosh.
Look at that.
You were right. I doubted our pair programming skills, and I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right. And just for you, Bret, I'll serve up some cheesecake.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. So this is pretty cool. We have a read-only API. What could we possibly want more than this?
How about a write maybe not write only, a write also API.
Right. Also, I love that. Yeah. So let's see. For read, we're doing a get /ID. What would we do to write a new dessert?
Yep. So in REST APIs, you usually will do a post. So I'll do a
post. Yeah.
And then I'll remember this all important comma here that I forgot last time.
Yeah. So we're saying just post to the root URL. We're not posting like a long string of the dessert, because typically when you do post, you want to send it in the body, send the new dessert in the body.
Right.
Oh, you're doing that trick again? You just assume that there's something. Somebody will write create dessert.
Exactly. So to do, right?
Yeah.
And then we got that all important intern to come and do the hard work, and then we can take credit for it. Just kidding.
Exactly.
We share credit on this team.
And then this is a neat way of doing it to make sure that the client knows that the dessert actually was created. I find it's good practice to read back the newly created dessert right away, and then returns status success, but then also in a data segment return the record that was just created.
Yeah, exactly. Just like when we were doing the manual the manual inserts into the database, the first thing we did is write a query, select star, and make sure that we actually put those in properly.
Right. Yeah. Also, a client, if it's a mobile client or web client, they often need the ID of the newly created item. So this is a neat way of sending back the whole object, whole newly created row, including the ID.
Totally.
So here, create dessert from DB. Here, it is again a promise. We do an insert into the table desserts. Again, set a question mark here, and then by feeding the SQL template string in and all the fields. And if we look, the fields came from here, and those fields came from the request body. So whatever fields the user sent to us, we're doing a safe insert on those in the database. And then insert ID, that's a magic variable we get back that gives us the ID of the newly created row. And get DB pool, we already had that from before.
Yep.
So this will actually be nice here, because we would hit this, get DB pool, DB pool will run, create a new database connection, and then we go up here, we do get dessert, and get dessert will then reuse that same connection, because it will hit get DB pool.
Oh yeah, that's a great point, right? So we even in this case, even if we don't have other requests reusing the same connection, we would actually reuse it just in this single request.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
So in general, it's a good practice, I think, to use the DB pool, even if you're not expecting to handle multiple requests at the same time, because you never know. You might have to query the database multiple times within one transaction or within one request.
Yeah, we don't want to leave the users hanging. Especially when you're on a mobile app. I've read somewhere that users expect results within half a second otherwise on a mobile app, otherwise they start getting antsy.
Oh yeah, I believe that. I know I
do.
All right.
Yeah, right. So we're here. We now have a new... Actually, let's just go in and take a quick look at all the versions of our container. So here are the various versions. So we could, for example, we know that this one was broken. We could tag it like that. And then if we want to go back, we want to go back to version 1.0, we can easily do that. Or just keep deploying the latest. So let's deploy the latest and see if it worked.
All right, let's do it.
Same procedure as before. We deployed the latest. We're keeping all of this sticks between deployments, and also the URL is the same for our service between deployments.
So now that we're doing this deploy, I know, I don't know about you, but always have such a hard time remembering doing a curl command to because we need to actually put stuff in the body. So before with a get, we could just do it in the browser or with a curl. So I'm just curious, what do you use to interact with APIs like that?
Yeah, I use Postman. Postman is an amazing tool for this.
And that way you don't have to remember all this complex curl syntax to interact with it.
And it gives nice feedback. It measures performance. It does everything. So it deployed here. Postman is starting up. But let's just see that we didn't break anything.
Oh yeah, always a good idea.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So still, this is still working. Good. And let's head over to Postman. All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Postman.
It's so polite.
Yeah. So we'll start a new one. And you said you coded it for post, right?
Right. Yep. And so the body of the request would be a JSON object that essentially maps to what our SQL database looks like.
Yep. So we'll post to that. We're not including anything after. We're just posting to the root, I should say. And here we need to tell it that it's JSON for the server, for Express and body parser to understand.
Yes, and one of the things actually that Postman does when you set that value is it will add in the HTTP headers in the post header request. It will set the content type of the request to be application JSON, which is important because if it doesn't have that, then the body parser in the Express app doesn't know that you have JSON in the body, so it doesn't know to actually parse it as JSON. So setting this in Postman automatically sets that request header, which is important because I have definitely, and in fact I did it on stage, did a request, forgot to set the header type, and it was not working because the app didn't know, hey, whatever this is in the body is JSON. So what dessert are you thinking about here?
I'm thinking ice cream sundae.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
Yeah. I'm always, is it spelled like that? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So calories, I'm thinking this may not be so bad actually.
Yeah.
Maybe something like that.
I'm always in favor.
What do you think?
Oh, I love an ice cream sundae. It's starting to get spring. The weather's warming up.
Yeah. Weather's warming up.
Feels
right.
Great. Yeah.
Very good. So we're posting this as JSON. We're posting it to the to the root URL. This might work.
All right.
Odds. What odds are given?
I feel 50-50. I'm going to flip a coin.
Flip a coin. Love it. Let's see here. We got something back.
All right. Heads. We won. We got it. Cool.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
Answer.
And the ID is 4. Ice cream sundaes now in the database.
Oh, it totally worked. I'll try not to sound so surprised.
Yeah. And so over here, if we wanted to hit 4, we see that we got the ice cream sundae back when we hit the read.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. We got it all working, most of it without any typos. We did find one. We saw how we could go into the logs.
Yeah, so that was
find
convenient.
the problem.
Show people a little bit how you can debug when you have mistakes in your application.
Yeah. I was surprised we didn't make more mistakes, actually.
Yeah, same. But we shouldn't say that. Just kidding.
We shouldn't say. Oh, yeah. I jinxed it. Sorry.
Oh my gosh. I mean, honestly, one bug to do an API that talks to a database, does an insert, does a select. I feel like that's actually pretty good. So pair programming. Well, thank you. Yeah, well done.
Pair programming is the best. Yeah. So I don't want to lead the witness here, but what kind of ice cream will you go and get after this bread?
I'm thinking I might do an ice cream sundae with a slice of cheesecake.
You are in New York after all. Yeah. All right, cool. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions on what we did here, or if you want to see something else coded up by Bret and I,
so please just leave a comment on the video. We love to read those comments, feedback, good, bad, what you'd like to see us differently, or what you'd like to see us maybe build in the future. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.